What's going on, everyone? It's Jack here from Nothing But Tech. Hope you guys are all doing well. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I want to discuss my mobile workflow for editing photos. I've been posting a lot more photos on Instagram, and every single time I shoot a video, I have a dedicated thumbnail for it. So I've been editing a lot on the go when I travel, which I've been doing a little bit more of lately. And it's also sometimes just a little bit more convenient to be able to edit something while going somewhere and I don't have my computer. So when I'm doing a lot of professional work, I'm obviously using my computer so I can get my presets in Lightroom and Photoshop and stuff like that. But this is just for my personal Instagram, for some clients' Instagrams that just want some quick stuff done on the phone. So I'm going to show you guys my most used applications, and then I'm also going to show you guys a process of editing 3 different photos and what I do to do it, so you guys can kind of learn from it and get it for yourself. So let's get right into it. So the apps I'm using, in terms of which ones I use from most to least, are the following: Lightroom, VSCO, Facetune 2, Red Eye Corrector, and Pixelmator, I think. So Pixelmator I actually bought a couple weeks back. And I probably would not recommend it because Facetune does what it does, but better. So I would take that off the list unless you want a one-time purchase, because Facetune you have to pay for monthly. So it's kind of up to you. So I'm going to first show you guys Facetune, but keep in mind that I don't use Facetune for its intended features. So Facetune is kind of like the Photoshop app for people that don't know how to use Photoshop. So you can make yourself skinnier, fix your features, make yourself tanner. You can do a lot of stuff, and I don't really use it for that. The main 2 things that I use Facetune for is relighting a photo and getting rid of people's like dark circles and shininess of their skin. There's a lot of other things you can use Facetune for, but I just don't. I'll still walk you through what they are because you might want to use them, and there's on occasion where I have to use them for a client. But for that type of work, I'd much rather use Photoshop, but I'll just show you it quickly. So I brought up this photo here, so I'm going to show you basically what you would do with this one. So there's not really anything that I would correct in this photo, but I'll just show you and walk you through what you could do. So you can change your emotions in the photo. So if I wanted to make myself smile, I could do that. Looks a little bad. You really need it to work on the right photo, but you definitely get the effect across. If you just want to do a slight smile, it kind of just does that. You can make your jaw skinnier, fatter, etc. Kind of adjust it for that. You can also adjust like the width of your face. This one kind of looks bad, but as I said, there are like a lot of different things you can do there. You can adjust your eyes, your nose, your lips. You can make it bigger, smaller. So some of them look pretty bad. Some of them, if you do them in small amounts, they look good. Like if you just made slight adjustments to things, then it actually makes a difference in the photo overall. And you don't really notice that you made an adjustment to it. Some of them aren't good. Like the mood one is kind of just like, it's a little weird. Like they look pretty bad, but the main thing that I use this app for is not that, so I'm going to get out of that, and then I'll show you like some other stuff. So the retouch is where I mainly use this app for some lighting stuff. So if I go over here, let's say that you're in a photo, and your forehead just looks like really shiny. Now in this photo, my nose has a little bit of a highlight to it, but that's because I'm in the sun, but let's just act like that's actual shine. I can go over to the matte icon, and over here I can just like draw over the shine. And then I increase or decrease the effect of it. So let's say I draw right over that shine. And I would actually leave that for the photo because it shows that there was sun hitting my face. But let's just say I didn't. You can see the difference it makes. And you have to use it like in small quantities so you don't overdo it. But like let's say you had a really shiny forehead. That just fixed your forehead for you right there. Or your nose or whatever it is. So I'm going to go back out of that. But that is what I use this a lot for. I also use it a lot for concealing like dark circles. Let's say that you had dark circles under your eyes. You can kind of go under here and conceal them. And it will kind of just fix the dark circles. You got to do it in not a full effect because it's going to look really fake if you do it in a full effect. But that's that. And then if you swipe over, there's reshape features, which a lot of people use. It's kind of a joke, but let's say I wanted to reshape this bench. I can kind of go like all for it, reshape it. A lot of people do that to make themselves look like different in the photo. I never touched that. I don't think it looks that real. There's a paint feature where you can kind of paint over like blemishes and stuff. Backdrop. You can put a custom backdrop behind you. Then relight. This is a tab that I use a lot. So it will relight your subject's face or your face for you. So you can see the difference here. If I turn this off, it just adds a subtle glow to your face. You got to do it in small quantities because you don't want to overdo it. So like I would blend this down a little bit. And I would not add as much, and then you can kind of just the brightness, so a little less brightness, and now it just adds a little subtle vibrance to the face. And then you're also able to adjust some things with your eyes, so you can use this for red eye correction and stuff like that. So I mainly use it for relighting a photo, getting rid of, like, let's say someone has a blemish like right here, and it's kind of ruining the photo. You can fix it. It works really well. You wouldn't be able to tell most of the time. So that's Facetune. Now I'm going to bring you into Lightroom. This is where I do most of my editing. Alright, so this is the photo we're working with. I use Lightroom a lot because when I shoot photos, I should note, I shoot in a really flat profile, which means that I turn down my saturation, I turn down my sharpness a little bit, and it looks really flat, it looks really unsaturated, it looks really dull. And I do that because it gives you a lot of flexibility in editing with white balance and a bunch of other things. And I also shoot in RAW, so Lightroom and VSCO are able to work with these RAW files. So this photo looks pretty good, but it's very flat. So the main things that I use Lightroom for are the colors, and same with VSCO. So I'm going to kind of walk you through what I would do on this edit, keeping in mind that it's already a pretty solid photo in my opinion. We got the nice bokeh in the background right there. We got the cool being able to actually look through what I was seeing. I shot this when I was at an event in New York for Sarah DG. So that's really nice. But the first thing that we're going to do on here is we are going to go into the lighting. So you can see a little auto feature here, and that will auto do what it thinks the photo needs. And that looks pretty good. We're not going to do that though, because we're going to edit this ourselves. So we're going to go to light. And normally my photos at nighttime are a little underexposed, so I'm just going to bump up the exposure a little bit here. And since this is a raw photo, you don't really lose quality when you do this. I also like a contrasty photo, so I'm going to up that a lot, and you're going to see it really kind of screws with the blacks, but we'll fix that, don't worry. If you want to get really technical, there's a little curve here, and you can kind of adjust accordingly. But I'm going to go out of that because I don't want to do that. I'm going to lose the highlights a little bit and bring up the shadows a little bit, and that will kind of account for the fact that we blacked out the shadows on my hand there. Then we're going to scroll down, and we're going to go to whites, and in here I normally boost these up, and I normally boost up the blacks as well, so the photo's not as dark. And that looks pretty good in terms of lighting. Then I go over to color, and I really like a cooler temperature with my photos. So I normally go down here and kind of make it a little cooler. You can adjust the white balance if you want. You can kind of pick a little point in the photo and then click like that, and it will do it for you. It will kind of get the white balance correct. But I think that this looks pretty good without that. I can adjust like the tint. That looks kind of crazy, but I'm going to keep that where it is. Right there. Vibrance, I always bring up, and then saturation. This is where I'm really going to bring it up, and this is where you're going to see the big difference in the photo. This is like the first major difference. You can see there, it did a really good job, but it's a little orangey. So now I'm going to bring down the vibrance a little bit, and also bring this a little bit to the purplish side, so you can kind of fix it. So I don't normally touch like tint until I do saturation, and maybe I'll actually bring down the saturation like a little bit. That looks more tasteful. Then I'm going to go over to effects, and in here I normally just make the clarity a little higher, and I don't really touch anything else in here. A lot of people have been using the grain effect. I think it looks pretty bad. Don't overdo that. It makes your photos look really amateur and fake if you overdo it too much. Okay, so once we're to this point, I then go over to detail, and I add a little sharpening. This photo's already pretty sharp, as you can see in the detail of my hand, but that makes it look a little bit better. I don't really touch anything else there. Then the next and last thing that I do here is I go over to optics. And basically, the app will be able to tell what lens you shot this on and then kind of add corrections so there's not as much distortion. So if I turn that on here, it just adds a subtle effect. Sometimes it's really a big effect. Like if you shoot in a really wide angle lens, it's going to fix like the distortion around the edges. It doesn't do anything major, but I always turn it on because it always makes the photo look a little better. So that's the final. It looks pretty good. So this is the before. And this is the after. So you don't think you're doing big things when you actually change it, but honestly, it really changes the photo, makes it look better. The bokeh in the background is a little more vibrant, like you're able to see it a little bit better. There's a little more reflection of that teal on the power button on the phone. It just takes a good photo and it makes it really great. Obviously, I'd be able to get a lot more out of this photo on my computer, but I'd be happy posting this photo. I think it looks really good. Okay, so that's Lightroom, and it's really good, especially if you want full control of the photo. But now I'm going to pop over to VSCO, and in VSCO you're going to be able to do a little bit more with the photo. And what I mean by that is that I'm going to edit a little things, but then it's going to do a lot for me because there's a lot of great presets in VSCO, which is why I keep coming back to it. We got a lot of presets options, plus if you buy more presets, you can get even more. So When I want full manual control of the photo, I tend to use Lightroom, but when I want some presets and some filters, I come to VSCO. Before I use any presets or filters, I'm first going to edit the photo, get the exposure right, the coloring right, and then I'll put on the filter as like the little cherry on top of the already perfect cake. You want the photo to be good without the filter. So we're going to go into the little adjustment here. First thing I'm always going to do is adjust the exposure. So in this photo, it's a really flat photo, so there was so much color here. This was shot in Times Square like 2 months ago, and there's a ton of color here, and it's just not coming through because the photo is so flat and so desaturated. So it's also a little bit underexposed, so we're just going to bump up that exposure a little bit, maybe like 3, maybe even. You don't want it to be so much, like that is way too much. As you can see, my face is totally overexposed now, but like 3 looks pretty good. So I'm going to click OK. Then I'm going to come over to contrast, and as you already know, I like to add some contrast. The thing with VSCO is their effects are really severe. It's on like a 6-point scale, so you want to keep it on the low end, because if you add too much, it's going to look like terrible. Like this looks like an amateur edited it. I normally keep it around like 1.2 to the 2.2 range, depending on the photo. Straighten it. If you like shot this on a weird angle, you can straighten it here, which is pretty cool. And then the cool thing about the VSCO is that it has X skew and Y skew. So let's say that this photo was like shot at a weird angle, you're able to fix it here. So let's say this was wrong, I'm able to really adjust it and fix it, and that's something really unique, and that's actually saved me a couple times. And also just adds a cool effect to the photo. Like if I did a slight one here, that's an interesting photo now. Like let's say I went like that. That's kind of interesting. I don't know, like it's a little distorted, obviously you'd have to fix it, but it's a little interesting. We'll keep it like right there. That's fine. Alright, now I go over to sharpen and I add some sharpening. If you do too much, it's going to look so fake. Like that's at 12 now. We're going to go like 3.6. And already, if we look at the before and the after, there's already a pretty big difference here. Click OK. The next main thing is saturation. I normally bump this like all the way up in VSCO because this is at such a flat profile. It really needs this. This is like what it looked like in real life. It actually looked even a little more saturated in real life, but this gets a pretty good effect. You can see the colors in the background are now popping. Face is a little bit more color and not as pale anymore. We get a little more color in the phone. This is what the background actually looks like. The little flag in the back looks pretty good. It just is a photo that pops now. Like look at that before and after. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to go okay. Clarity, I'm going to up a little bit, but too much. You see how fake that looks now? Like that actually looks like a cartoon. So I normally go like 0.2, like barely anything. If anything, I don't always do that. Then the cool thing about this is that I can edit the highlights and stuff. So I might want to tone down the highlights a little bit. And actually now seeing this, I'm going to go back to clarity and I'm going to actually turn that to 0. Turn that to 0. And then I'm actually going to tone down the saturation a little bit, because it was starting to look a little fake, and also tone down the sharpening. So it's all like playing around with the controls, getting it right, because that was starting to look hella fake. Now it looks a little bit more real. Then I can go to the tint and kind of adjust that, but I don't normally do that here. I normally would save that. Then there's this grain feature. I hate this grain feature. If only people would stop using this. Like this, I see this all the time all over my timeline now. So many people are adding so much fake grain. It just looks terrible. Like in what way does this look good? You don't want to overdo it. Maybe if you add like a little bit, people are trying to get that cinematic look, but going like that looks a little bizarre, alright? So, then I go over to fade, and I could do this. This is like for the faded film look. I don't always love that look though, so I'm not going to touch that. Then there's something called shadow tint and shadow and highlights. So what I can do here is I can kind of adjust like the tint for the shadows and the highlights. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to kind of bring it down to like 3.7 looks pretty good. For the highlights, I'm going to go with a redder hue, and I'll go with like a 7. That looks really good. This is like unlocked features. I never even use that anyways. And this is looking like a pretty solid photo so far. If we look at the before and the after, it looks really good. So at this point, I'd be like, alright, I'm pretty happy with the photo. It looks properly exposed. The colors are good. Now I'm going to add a filter for the final touch. So I normally use the C1, the P5, or the T1 because I like the cooler look. But let's say I went with the C1 this time. I would never use a high C1. Like, you always want to bring it down so it looks natural. Somewhere around like a 3 might look good here. It just adds a little bit. But maybe for this photo, actually, I might want to bring out the cooler tone. So I might go over to a T1, or P5 actually, and bring this down to like a 2.9. That looks really good now. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and crop it just a little bit. Crop it a little bit of the bottom and the top. I want to keep the American flag in there because I feel like that adds to the photo, so I'm not going to take that out, but I'm going to crop this just like a little on both sides. Is that even now? Okay, because I really want the phone in like that third. That looks really good. And this is the final photo, so this is the before, this is the after. It makes a pretty big difference. And I think this is actually like a postable photo now. It looks really good, so I'm going to save it. And that's it. It looks really good. Okay, so that's basically Lightroom and VSCO. Red eye corrector I just used for some red eye stuff, but if you have a better suggestion, I'd definitely like to know, so leave it in the comments down below. But that's mainly my workflow when I'm on the go. Let me know if this helped you in any way. Let me know if you would want to see like a preset pack of my own where I give you guys my presets for editing my photos. Smash the like button if you want to see that, and leave a comment down below. Let me know if you want more of the photography-based videos. I know I cover tech a lot, but would you like to see more how-tos and stuff like this? If you would, let me know. Leave a like. Thank you guys all so much for watching this video. Maybe share it with a friend who would find this useful. Maybe share this with a friend that you want to give a subtle hint to cut out that green. I'll be sure to help them out. Thank you guys all so much for watching this video. Subscribe right here so you don't miss any other content, and check out my other content right here. I'll catch you guys on the next one, hopefully. Bye.